at its widest. Having strict deadlines specified in the grant agreement, the construction of the alternate crossing will begin at the end of March 2026 and will be completed by 27th July deadline. Similarly, the removal of the swing bridge will commence upon the completion of the alternate crossing and to be completed by the 1st of December 2026. Madam Speaker, I would like to take the opportunity to thank our development partners for their contribution to this high priority project and for their continued support for the development of Belize. I wish to thank by name the government and people of the Republic of China, Taiwan, the government and people of Japan, the Caribbean Development Bank, the Kuwait Fund, and the OPEC Fund. Yes, we'll have to big up our friends. The 2026-2027 fiscal budgets signals a decisive shift towards delivering measurable results and strengthening overall system performance, marked by the launch of the Belize Education Sector Plan 2026-2027. This budget moves beyond planning to purposeful implementation, ensuring that reform efforts translate into real and sustainable impact. The Ministry of Education's allocations are strategically directed towards maximizing efficiency, enhancing accountability, and improving budget performance with a clear focus on achieving tangible gains in access, quality, equity, and relevance across the education system. These investments are firmly aligned with the national development priorities outlined in Plan Belize. 1. Expanding opportunities, enrolling more students today. The 2026-2027 budget will strategically invest in Belize's education system to meet the needs of a growing student population, accelerate system-wide transformation, and protect the well-being of our teachers, ensuring tangible results for students, educators, and the nation. 2. Free learning, brighter futures, education upliftment program. The Education Upliftment Program, or the EUP, Together We Rise, eliminates financial barriers for families across Belize. The targeted allocation for funds for secondary school students in all districts demonstrates its administration's strong commitment to expanding access to quality education. At its launch in 2022-2023 academic year, the program supported 915,000 beneficiaries, representing growth of over 1,000% in less than 4 years. I wish the former Minister of Education would have been here today so I could show how to get this work done. But you know, Representative Daly messed up with plans, no? Where is he? But we're happy that you're here, my brother. We're happy that you're here and you're doing a good job in Colette. And I told that to some of your constituencies last week, Wednesday. It goes to show that you're there not to be able to get in a power, but because you want to serve the people of Colette. That's the difference. In 2026-2027, 100% of students enrolled in government secondary schools nationwide will attend school for free. Over 60% of all secondary school students in Belize, 60% of all students in Belize will benefit from free education, providing significant financial relief to more than 8,500 families. The opposition like talk about just inflation and we know they do nothing. This is how we help people. We can't bring down the price of the goods being imported, but we could find ways to put more money in people's pocket. In addition, a substantial number of students attending non-EOP secondary schools also receive financial assistance from the government of Belize in the form of subsidies, grants, or scholarships. Traditionally, over 5,000 students outside of EOP schools benefit from such support. 3, bridging education and technology. Connect Ed in action. This budget will further advance technology integration and innovation to enhance teaching and learning. Internet access will be expanded across 283 schools, from preschools to tertiary institutions, benefiting over 78,000 students and more than 4,500 teachers, with an investment of approximately $2 million per year. Internet access is just the foundation. Innovative digital programs such as the 501 Academy website and its key features, Access 501 and the recently launched AI chatbot, 501 Historian demonstrates the ministry's commitment to transformative education. 4, this is very important. It's never been done before. More healthy students, more bright futures, expanding the National Health Start Feeding Program. In 2025-2026, the National Health Start Feeding Program reached 15,850 students across 56 primary and 22 secondary schools, with an annual investment of approximately $8 million. In 2026-2027, this program will expand to benefit around 20,000 primary and secondary students. In addition to covering meal-related expenses, the ministry will also allocate funding to schools for upgrading kitchen equipment and carry out infrastructure repairs. 5, connecting classrooms. More transportation for learning and teaching. The 2025-2026 budget supported a total of 280 bus runs, benefiting approximately 14,000 students and numerous teachers across Belize. Over the past 5 years, the number of bus runs have steadily increased in response to rising demand, reflecting in the ministry's commitment to removing barriers to school attendance and addressing the growing transportation needs of students. In 2026-2027 budget will further enhance existing routes and expand school transportation with an additional 15 runs. This service costs the government of Belize over $1 million. Building tomorrow, advancing more STEAM and TVET education in Belize. In 2023, Belize pioneered the establishment of ITSA STEAM Academy, the first public STEAM high school in Belize and the region. And I'm most proud because the UDP want to claim credit for this. They started the planning, but they never could have gotten it off the ground, that we almost lost the funding. Right, Minister Fandangriga? We almost lost the funding, and it's because of the efforts of the Minister of Education and the Minister of State in Education. They managed to save this very important and innovative project. I think they once said, no, once one time, the UDP talk and the PUP what? Work. We get things done. And we're showing them all day today. The 2025-2026 budget supported the Academy's financial needs, covering both teacher and staff remunerations, as well as operational costs. The 2026-2027 budget will continue this support and provide free education to approximately 300 students, comprising the Academy's full enrollment for the upcoming school year. Additionally, the Ministry of Education, in partnership with development partners, will construct 6 STEAM pavilions. Now the UDP may think they may have to go build 6 more schools, you know. But we're using technology, using connection direct through fiber. So we will construct 6 STEAM pavilions, 1 in each district, during the 2026-2027, expanding access to innovative STEAM education nationwide. The 2026-2027 budget will provide the necessary resources to operationalize the recently approved national TVET policy, activate the National Training Authority, the NTA, and revitalize the mandate of TVET in Belize. I'm most pleased to add, again, under the Right Honorable Syed Musa, the PUP government back then constructed these TVETs all across the country. I remember we invested, I think it was approximately $35 million, and the UDP went in and they did nothing with the TVETs. It's a disgrace. Measures and the additional funding of approximately $16.5 million secured under the MCC Compact over the next 5 years, 2026-2027, will mark a year of full transformation for the TVET sector. Also, over the next 5 years, MCC will invest over $50 million in Belize's education system, particularly in the areas of transforming teaching and learning in the secondary education and teaching skill gaps in key growth industries. Clearly, we are keeping up our promise to the people as set out on Plan Belize and Plan Belize 2.0 to make Belize an education nation. We also wish to provide updates on other government initiatives. Back in October of last year, I asked this Honorable House to authorize the purchase of the 3 hydroelectric facilities, Moyehon, Chaleo, and Vaca plants, then owned and operated by Fortis Inc. of Canada. This House gave its approval for the acquisition, along with the consent to raise the necessary financing by way of government treasury notes. I gave an assurance that following the acquisition, government would immediately divest shares into in the company and would recoup the entirety of the purchase price. I am pleased to report that government's share offer in the new Hydro Belize Limited was oversubscribed at the closing date of 20th January 2026. About 2,000 Belizeans also put in their money and invested in Belize by buying these shares. applications which were paid up total over 4,452,000 shares. The equity sale generated $129.1 million plus $5.7 million for additional shares to SSB. Total proceeds from equity sale therefore amount to $134.8 million. Bond offering expected to raise $100 million to cover the buyback from government of the remaining shares. These shares will then be cancelled. The purpose of these bonds, in addition to allowing government to recoup the balance of the purchase price paid for the acquisition, allows institutional investors such as Social Security, credit unions and banks to buy long-term debt instrument. Once this process is complete and the new board is in place, government would have fulfilled its commitments to acquire and divest this critical utility company, all done in less than 1 year. Belize would have secured for more than 2,000 local shareholders the source of some 30% of the country's power generation. All future profits will thus remain here in Belize. I thank the interim board led by the current executive chair of BL, Ambassador Lin Yong, along with the financial secretary and CEO Nara Garcia. I also acknowledge the management and staff of Hydro Belize, led by CEO Kay Menzies. Next is the $450 million upgrading of the Port of Belize at Port Loyola in Belize City, which persists as a high priority project, critical for trade and for tourism. Minister Osha, they smile back there from Port Loyola. Give me the man. Since this decisive repurchase of the port by government in December of 2023, the management of the port and more recently, a special project execution unit led by Dr. Gilbert Canton has been working non-stop for us to come first to complete a proper master plan and subsequently to prepare the appropriate environmental and social impact assessment plan. One of the foremost port consultants in the world, the firm of Moffitt and Nichols, has been supporting the planning process. I'm pleased to report that the ESIA blueprinted to the Department of the Environment for consideration. The Port of Belize project would bring a historic transformation to the country's central marine navigational channel, the Belize City Harbor, the cargo port, the cruise tourism sector, and most importantly, to the Port Loyola community. The entire Belize City, you're right. The entire Belize City, the entire Belize district is going to benefit from this project. But I'm sure that the honorable member from Port Loyola will want to say we have to claim it first because it's in my constituency. Right, member from Port Loyola? For importers and exporters alike, and for all Belizean consumers, the new port facilities would mean faster and cheaper fishing arrangements. For port stakeholders, including the stevedores, the upgrading will deliver far better working conditions and a long-term job security. For cruise tourism, landside berthing will position Belize as a major beneficiary of surging cruise tourism flows and increased passenger spending in the Western Caribbean corridor. And most importantly, the improvements to the marine access channel and the Belize City Harbor will be achieved with a program of works that actually upgrades coastal protection and safeguards Belize's marine integrity. Several world-class port operators and cruise lines have expressed interest in a strategic partnership with Belize, which would bring capital and know-how to the project. And I must pause to give thanks to the Minister of Tourism and his team who have been doing an extraordinary job in navigating through these difficult times the growth of the tourism industry to ensure that tourism continue to support our country and to provide more and more opportunities for Belize, and the Port of Belize is going to be no different. Our goal is to commence work this year and to have the new facility opened by 2030. Madam Speaker, our small nation has felt the grand impact of climate change. In our region, we're experiencing cyclones or hurricanes and droughts of greater intensity and frequency. For us in Belize, it is not a question of if, but of when we will experience the next climate-related catastrophe. So we have to be prepared and do all that we can to mitigate and adapt in face of the looming threats. In January was the first dedicated climate finance unit in the region. It was the first dedicated climate finance unit in the region, and since its inception, it has grown significantly and has gained access to a pool of over $124 million in highly concessionary loans and grants from key development partners. Including the Green Climate Fund, the Adaptation Fund, the Global Fund, the IDB, the European Union, to name a few. Key achievements already realized and on the horizon include the following. Approval from the Green Climate Fund for the Ministry of Economic Transformation to act as a direct beneficiary for the GCF's readiness funding. A US $38.8 million grant from the Green Climate Fund and other partners for building the adaptive capacity of sugarcane farmers in Northern Belize program. A US $10 million loan from IDB Klima for Kikaka water and sanitation system. I'm going to come to that later. And technical assistance from the IDB for the development of a framework for the issuance of green bonds with a potential value of US $20 million. At the same time, through the efforts of the unit, Belize was able to secure accreditation for the Development Finance Corporation to the Green Climate Fund, which can now directly access up to $50 million in climate-related fund financing. Let me address access to World Bank IDA financing. Madam Speaker, members may recall that in February of 2024, and after much effort, and with the support of the senior management of the World Bank, Belize became eligible to access the World Bank's International Development Association, IDA or IDA, financing on highly concessional terms. Such terms include a 40-year credits with 10 years grace and 30-year repayment periods, and interest rates linked to the prevailing SDR rates, approximately 1% to 2% per annum. For Belize, such resources were made available under the IDA Sustainable Development Finance Policy, which are aimed at enhancing overall debt transparency, fiscal sustainability, and/or debt management, anchored in Belize's World Bank Country Program. These include annual performance and policy actions, PPAs, all aimed at enhancing fiscal management and sustainability, which are to be agreed with the World Bank every year. For fiscal year 2025, two key actions agreed by Belize were the approval of a disaster risk financing policy and approval of a medium-term fiscal framework and a policy for a fiscal strategy plan. Both have since been adopted by the Cabinet. For fiscal year 2026, the two key actions agreed by Belize were the approval of a policy for the allocation of resources for a contingencies fund and the submission to Parliament of an internal audit bill. Madam Speaker, internal audit bill will be presented later in this meeting of the Honorable House. Since becoming eligible for IDA resources, the following projects have been approved and are under implementation. In May 2025, IDA approved the Blue Cities and Beyond projects, US $23.5 million. The objectives of this project are to improve Belize's management capacity for sustainable coastal and blue economy development, increase safe water supply, and reduce land-based pollution discharges at targeted urban centers, and in case of an eligible crisis or emergency, to respond promptly and effectively to it. The project consists of the following parts: policy development and capacity building, and water, sanitation, and waste management. In October 2025, IDA approved the Catastrophe Deferred Drawdown Option, CAT-DDO, facility, a specialized product which enhances a country's crisis preparedness and prevention by providing a contingency line of credit that offers immediate liquidity to address shocks related to natural disasters and public health emergencies caused by biological events. The amount of this CAT-DDO facility is $20 million, with about $1.5 or $10 million drawn from Belize's IDA allocation. The financing that will be available through the CAT-DDO will substantially close any gaps for disaster response should the need arise. A third IDA-financed project, the negotiations for which have just been completed, is the Early Childhood Development and Female Empowerment Project, US $23.5 million, to improve access to quality early childhood care and education and female employment opportunities in early childhood care and education and in other sectors. The project also aims at increasing availability of preschool services in underserved areas and improving quality and inclusivity of existing preschool services and increasing availability of quality, inclusive early development centers. This initiative is to increase women's labor force participation, skills training, and increase in Belizean women's earning capacity. The project is expected to commence in the third quarter of this financial year. Looking ahead, under the upcoming IDA 21 cycle, Belize will be eligible for up to US $45 million in IDA financing over a period of 3 years to the World Bank's fiscal year 2023. Madam Speaker, the access to either highly concessionary resources along with the related policy actions will contribute immensely to Belize's long-term debt and fiscal sustainability. I wish to thank the senior management and staff of the World Bank for its support in this matter, and also to our own staff and who have worked tirelessly to bring this program to our reality. Madam Speaker, the government of Belize continues to advance a broad-based tax reform agenda aimed at improving equity, efficiency, and sustainability within the national tax system. High on the agenda for fiscal year 2026-27 is the transformation of the Belize Tax Service Department into a semi-autonomous revenue authority, SARA. This structural shift will provide the operational autonomy, governance flexibility, and enhance accountability needed to deliver on Belize's tax modernization. Modern, transparent, and service-oriented tax system, one that supports national development and long-term fiscal sustainability. On the expenditure side, the government of Belize will continue to exercise tight control on its recurrent expenditure while making sufficient provisions for key needs in education, health, national security, infrastructure, and housing, to name a few. Focus will be on containing any additional growth in the wage and wage-related now that we have come to an agreed 3-year compensation package with the joint unions. The government will continue working on pension reform aimed at placing the unsustainable pension expenditure on long-term sustainable footing. We will finalize this before the end of 2028. The government, with the technical assistance, support, and potential funding from the IDB, is also embarking on a program of civil service modernization. A key element of the program will be the modernization and consolidation of now outdated pay and grading system in the public service. Within the medium-term fiscal framework, fiscal policy is anchored on maintaining a prudent overall budget position and a sustainable public debt. The government's primary fiscal objective is to sustain a consistent primary budget surplus in the range of 1.5 to 2% of GDP over the medium term, which will support fiscal credibility, strengthen buffers, and ensure that the overall budget balance remains consistent with macroeconomic stability objectives, both in nominal terms and as a share of GDP. On the debt side, although public debt has declined earlier than projected and is currently at 65% of GDP range, further consolidation is expected to be more gradual due to structural constraints on economic growth and limited control over global interest rates conditions. Accordingly, fiscal policy will remain focused on disciplined expenditure management, efficient revenue mobilization, and cautious borrowing, with the objective of placing public debt on a firmly downward trajectory towards 50% of GDP by 2030 in both nominal terms and relative to GDP. Madam Speaker, today's budget proposals have been crafted after careful consideration of the state's most urgent and most vital obligations. Let me say that what everyone knows There's never enough money to fund every program. So tough choices need to be made at budget time. First and foremost, government must meet its payroll and pension obligation to the 15,000 public officers, teachers, and security personnel. These professionals at all levels fulfill government's mandate to manage the affairs of the state and to provide service to all 420,000 citizens. This single cost of wages and pensions to repay interest on the public debt. To repay interest on the public debt. Very little is left thereafter. And so from multilateral leaders and bilateral partners, government effectively finances all capital investments in education, healthcare, infrastructure, housing, security, and so forth. There is clearly a limit to this capacity to borrow, and the limit is tied to our capacity to pay. Our policy is for this generation to fund its own welfare, not to borrow from our children. Our goal is for future generations to benefit from our foresight and sacrifice, not to impoverish our children and grandchildren for our benefit. The fact is that in our mixed economy, government's role is augmented, in some instances, superseded by the private sector and non-profit actors. When government leads by example, when it manages the public purse prudently, its conduct inspires confidence, which in turn can multiply development through private investments. Money chooses its host country, and that choice is a clear indication, while outflows, not counting the acquisition of the hydro facilities, total just $231 million. Net investments flows, therefore, has been $505 million, or over $500 million in just the last 2 years. This is neither accident nor aberration. This unprecedented investment flow is an unmistakable signal that our policies have inspired trust in our laws and courts, trust in our financial system and currency, trust in the long-term sustainability of our economy, and yes, trust in the administration of the state by this People's United Party government. I am exceedingly confident that these successes will grow exponentially. And with the continued support of the public service, the private sector, and the cabinet, Belize will continue to stride from strength to strength. A few weeks ago, I told the leaders of our party that the work before us is to transform progress into lasting prosperity, to turn opportunity into achievement for more Belizeans, and that we will make Belize a nation where every child can imagine a brighter future than the one before. Yes, we may stumble. The ascent of the greatest empires have not been without falter, but the Belizean spirit will never falter. We will prevail and we will thrive. I am convinced that our best days are ahead of us. And with the guidance of the Almighty, we will not stand still, but move boldly towards tomorrow. Madam Speaker, I recommend this budget and ask all members for their consideration and support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, we'll just have a short recess so that the technicians can remove the podium and other items. Thank you.